everybody. Welcome back to my podcast. Welcome to Stories with Bree. I'm super excited about my guest today. Her name is Kiarra Charles. Actually, put some respect on your name. Arthur Kiarra Charles. I got my book, girl. Yeah. So we get to talk about your book. We were just saying before I pressed record, I said, I haven't talked to you in forever, seemed like. And we both was talking about how it does take us a minute to kind of like take a step back from life and from being busy and working all the time and being like, you all right, sis? You how your life doing? How's life treating you? So I feel you. But it's okay. We're doing well, but I'm in for a treat. Yeah. Super excited.
So sweet.
So let's if you want to introduce yourself, you want to say something about what you do and for a living, and then also on top of introducing yourself as an author, feel free to do that now, and then we'll jump right into the icebreakers.
Sure. So my name is Kiarra Charles, as Bree said. I'm a little nervous. This is interesting. Interesting. And yeah, so I work as a mental health therapist full time. So that's actually what I do from a professional standpoint, and creatively. I write poetry. I just started dabbling in some spoken word. So I just started dabbling in kind of performing some of my work, which is a new area for me. But yes, I'm the author of Loud Whispers, a book of poems and pictures. And this is my first published work, and I'm excited to be talking to the publisher of this project. So I like to look at Bree as she birthed this. She helped me bring this vision to life. So this is a really special moment for me, for her and I to just kind of one-on-one talk about it and reflect on like what this process was like for us.
Yes, I'm excited. It's really like a reflection, low key, for us, because this will be year 2. Can you believe it? In December, this book would have been out for 2 years, and that was a time putting Loud Whispers together. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thoroughly enjoyed your writing. It was such an honor to work with you as an author. It was just like to see other people's creative processes and like how they go about writing things and how they go about navigating and being on the other side of that and helping to kind of like, I guess, organize those thoughts and be like, oh, this looks really good. And to just go through the process with you about how you want to do your organization and things of that nature, which we can dive into that conversation a little bit more, but how you were just wanting things organized and laid out. And it was just a whole thing. It was fun. But before we get too deep into it, I want to ask you these icebreakers, because these are the questions that I ask everybody when they come on, just to help the audience get to know you a little bit better. So my first question is, if you can remember, what was your favorite childhood book?
Oh, The Invisible Man. I remember, yeah. I remember it was a pretty advanced chapter book. Yeah. And yeah, I was stuck on that book, man. And I kept on telling my mama, I remember saying, I feel like it's so much more here, but I'm missing the point. I remember telling her that. I'm like, I know it's deep, mama, but I'm missing the point. You know, why is he invisible? And, you know, and all of this stuff. And yeah, that book still is something I think about, actually. Yeah, it's kind of a reference point for me.
Absolutely. And it's probably part of the reason why you're a therapist now. That makes sense. I was you know what's interesting? Nobody has mentioned that book. And like you said, that is an advanced book for.
I was a reader
as a child. That's something Invisible Man is not introduced to you until like later on in high school, sometimes in college. I think the first time I read it was probably in college.
Wow. Yeah,
I own several copies of that book, actually. But it wasn't, I don't think I read it until college. I'm pretty sure I was supposed to read it at some point in high school, but I don't remember doing it. But that's interesting. Okay. Invisible Man. And so do you have a library card?
Oh, do I have a library card? I don't believe so. I had one at one point. I'm from Centralville, Illinois. So we had the Cali Boyd Center out here. That was our library. It's closed down now, unfortunately. I have fantasies of opening that center back up because it's such a big part of my childhood. But I remember having a library card through them, and of course I had one through the East St. Louis Public Library. But no, I don't think I don't have a library card.
I'm gonna need you to renew your library card. Is your resident library?
I haven't even thought about that, Britt. That's a really good question.
Absolutely. I hope you renew. I think you're a part of Cahokia Heights now, so you can go to the library card with Cahokia, which is so weird to even. It's so weird to say, but
I gotta adjust. I gotta get used to change. No worries over here. So y'all, for folks watching, and Britt already knows this. She's very familiar with Noir. This is my pup. This is Noir. And so if you hear rustling and tussling in the back, this is this guy. He just kind of doing his thing. And I think that because, he been at home all day solo while I've been at work. This is just his time to blow off things. So.
That's all right. Hey, Furfew. Look.
That's what you hear. So.
Baby, you done got so big.
Yeah, right? He's grown.
He's grown. Wow.
He's grown.
So, for you, digital or pen and paper?
Oh, I'm a pen and pad girl. All day long. I love to just write. I love the process of writing. I get excited when I see like clean paper or I get a smooth pen that write good. It just get me in the mood.
I know that.
So yeah. For sure.
Mostly everybody that has come on has said pen and paper, so I'm not surprised. I don't
know what it is about that, but yeah, it's like something about the OG writers. We like our pen and pad.
It's just cathartic, and it's a release that comes with it. And as I've been telling my other guests, that I really just got into journaling, and I know in therapy they recommend that a lot to just kind of clear your mind and get things out. And I've been doing that really not as consistent as I probably should, but for the last maybe 2 to 3 years, I've been journaling, and I have been finding a lot of release in literally physically writing on paper.
Something about
one of the short stories that a couple short stories and poems that I did a little while back, for some reason I just felt the urge to physically write. And I wrote all of it out on paper. And it was just like, wow, I ain't did this since like grade school. Right? This is fun. It was definitely nostalgic, but I'm more of a digital person. Like, as you know, my notes app is popping on my phone. I got so much stuff going on over there. I was like, I already told one of my male best friends, I said, when I pass away, you got the password, reset my whole phone.
That's something to think about. I never even thought about that. And we're kind of like in this digital age now where we're having to communicate that to our loved ones and being like, yo, when I pass, like, I need you to like be in charge of how this information gets
out there. Listen, shut everything down. Don't even think twice about it. Don't you look, don't go snooping, don't be reminiscing.
Destroy.
Just put it all down. Clear the cloud out. That's so funny. So, who's your favorite author or writer?
Oh, so I don't know. So I'll be honest. I think that a part of me going through undergrad and then going through graduate school really stripped away the joy of reading for leisure, right? So I really have kind of been disconnected from reading, and it's something that I'm wanting to get back into, reading for the purpose of like leisure rather than, reading is a big part of my job. Research is a big part of the profession. And I'm reading intriguing stuff, of course. This is, psychological concepts and theories and stuff like that. But so I just want to go back to some of my fondest memories. And I feel like when I really was able to have that experience of reading that you want to have, where it's like you're imagining how the characters look and you're like wondering like how they feel.
Yes.
And I gotta say, it was Sister Soldier and Sister Soldier's book, The Coldest Winter Ever.
Of course. Of course.
And that's a legendary staple, I feel like. It's something about that, me being a teenager, a Black girl, and kind of just being able to relate and being able to build a world around what she was like conveying. And so I kept up with her. I read Coldest Winter Ever, and then I went into Midnight. She did right after Cold. And I love that format. Midnight. And you know what's so interesting, Britt? I was always curious about Midnight. So, of course, we have our main character, Winter. Yes. And I'm into Winter, of course. But something about Midnight was alluring. I'm like, what is his history? What's his story? What does he think about? And the fact that Sister Soldier kind of knew that I wanted to know. And it was like she established this whole edition just around Midnight and his history. And, you know, him being an immigrant. And I was like, oh, this is what I wanted. Like, I was curious about him. And so that format of her, like, breaking down the characters and giving them their own space to actually have their own conscience and let us know, like, this is why I move the way I move. I thought that was so dope. Like,
I agree. And she did, I think she has one for the sister as well. She only gave her one book. But yes, and I love Midnight series, and Midnight actually grew into a character of his own. I think he has 3 books, and I read all. I believe I've read 2 of the 3. I need to go back and read the last one, but I really enjoyed that. And I agree with you that that was a character that I was very curious about, that I wanted to know more about, and I like the fact that he was mysterious. And then we can get into some of your poems. When you think of Mr. Cognac, I think of Midnight. It reminds me of that when you think about that. But yeah, we used to pass the coldest winter ever around like cigarettes on the yard.
You heard me? It was like a cult classic. Like it was like it was so embedded in the culture. Like absolutely. Yeah, man, I really do. Yeah, I would say that's some of my fondest memories. I don't know if that's my favorite author, but definitely I light up when I think about that moment when I think I really understood the power of language and like, oh, you can do this. You can like take people on a journey and develop like this attachment where it's like, I'm attached to Midnight. I want to know what happens next. I want to know, you know. And so, yeah, man, that's some powerful writing.
Absolutely. And that's me all the way when it comes to writing, when it comes to reading, when it comes to writing. I definitely think that you should check out Bookstagram, that hashtag on Instagram. That might get you inspired to start back reading for leisure. Like you said, you desire to do that. And that is right now my form of escapism, as we like to call it. But I've always been like you, I've always actually been an avid reader. I've always been interested in stories, interested in the breakdown of stories, interested in books in ways that other people might not traditionally be interested in books. Because I was that person that was checking the title verso, that was looking at how the book was put together. I've been doing that all my life. So of course, naturally I would end up where I am.
Yes, that's what I'm thinking.
I've been doing that my entire life, and I've always been very much so. I find myself getting like engulfed in the story. And once I get engulfed and engaged in that story, it's hard for me to have to pull myself out of that world. I have to remind myself that these ain't real people. This is a story. Like, stop getting so emotionally involved here. But I felt transitioning into your story and transitioning into your book, I got those same or similar feelings when I would start reading your poetry. I felt like you created pictures, you created a space to where you could see it on the page. And there are several poems throughout this book. First off, Loud Whispers is a work of art all around. Shout out to Sarah Connolly for all of the artwork that's in here, and there is some beautiful, except for the pictures, but there's some beautiful illustrations in here. Like I remember when I saw this, and I said, "Wait a minute, that's you! That's you!"
She did that,
and I was like, "Fearful Less." I didn't know that I needed to be that. And so I remember going through this process with you and just building this work of art, literally this body of literature. And I told you that this was one of my favorites. And I was just like, to see the pictures and to see your words match so well together. And I was just like, I could have never thought. I could have never thought. And so talk about that. What how do you I know I'm putting all my praise in it, but how do you feel about the book as an author, as the person who literally put the words on the page, and then now you see this artwork that actually like matches what your thoughts was? How was you feeling when that happened?
Man, I'm still amazed at this book. I really am. I still go back and look and just be like, man, like I couldn't you know how you know what you want. You have an idea. And I did know. I said, man, there's something about it that's making me want to like see this written out and then also see it somehow depicted through art. Right. And I'm not an artist. I'm not, I'm not a drawer. I don't paint. I don't, do things like that. So I'm like, man, like how do you do this? So I have the concept. The question is like, I have no idea what it looks like though, And so me being able to kind of let go of my desire to control things, which I've had that issue since I was a kid.
Yeah.
That's when Sarah came into the picture, and my conversations with her in the beginning stages when I'm trying to let her know kind of here's what I'm thinking, here's like I'm envisioning my words, and then like an art piece on the other side. And she's like, well, like give me some direction. And she's asking very good questions. And honestly, I was like, I got no direction for you. I want like creative freedom. I really want you to whatever inspires you, whatever that organic, raw reaction is to what I'm saying, I want that, like, I want to see that depicted. And Sarah is a friend of mine. That's a personal friend of mine. Also, she was a colleague. That's how we met. So we met in the professional world. And then I realized her creativity and we kind of clicked. I was like, oh, wait. Yeah. And what happened was, we had personal conversations in the midst of this book as well.
Okay.
So that organic, raw emotion that came out in the artwork, yes, is inspired by my words, but also it's very much inspired by where Sarah was in her life at that time.
That's so good.
And so it's kind of like we got this, like through this, I'm able to like give Sarah a space to express.
I agree.
And that kind of goes back to the whispers piece. Like, it's like there's things in this book that are very loud and in your face, and they're clear. They're clear cut. I'm not mincing words around what I'm talking about.
No, yeah.
Then there's elements of it that are more subtle, more like in the, in like it's in the process that we kind of get to the root of, what this, what's really happening here. So I would say that that's kind of, those are some things that I'm like really most proud of. Yeah. That like I was able to also tap into some stuff she had going on, and and it kind of became this nice little infusion.
I agree. Because you're right. You did not make mince words at all. And I remember when we were going through the process, and you were like, Britt, I understand what your business is about. I understand, what the type of person that you are. I understand your lifestyle. I respect all of that and things of that nature. I want to work with you, but I want to know if my content is, I guess what you're trying to say, it was like a little too raunchy, or if it was too expressive. And I remember having that conversation with you, and I was like, what? And of course, naturally, because I'm a pretty private person, and I'm open to an extent about my life, but everybody don't know all my business. So it's like, yeah, I know what you are, I know what's the front facing, who you are as a person, but as we dive deeper, it's like, I only know you from afar, but what are, like, how can we work together still? How are we going to work around this? And I was just like, you're good. Like, we're cool. Like, we're cool. And I was just like, just send me some examples. And then when you send over the examples, I was like, oh, this just looks like somebody that's just expressing who they are and expressing themselves. And honestly, to be honest, I feel like you gave me more courage to be more open and more honest about just emotional things that I was feeling. I found myself, because normally I don't write a lot of poetry. I've never been someone that just always wrote poetry. Poetry has always been a mood writing type thing for me. And mostly it came out when I was angry. For me, poetry always came out when I was experiencing really extreme emotions, right? And so, but going through helping you with your book, and then also helping, Tangela, and helping Dominique, while I was helping put you guys' books together, words were just coming out of me. Words were just flowing. And I feel like it was during that period where I was really working with you, where I felt all the poetic license to just really say what I wanted to say and express myself. And in your book, you have 3 different sections. You have love, sex, and romance. Like, out the gate, you're like, we about to get into this. And I really appreciated it, because on that page you say, love for you, love for me, feeling myself, feeling FILLING myself. Let's go on a love journey. And I was like, oh, she ready. she ready to go in. And then as soon as you turn the page, it's like bam in your face. Why did you think that was so important to promote, like, sex positivity, body positivity, love, and romance? Why did you think that was important to just get out the way right out the gate?
Right. I love that you said just get it out the way, because okay, twofold. So in reality, right, I think this was a very vulnerable process for me. And I'm also very private, and there's also certain expectations involved in me being a therapist, right? And so there's this, just like how we would think of teachers, or I'm sure in your field as well. It's like, you wouldn't think we have sex, or we, have relationships or whatever. It's like that. It's almost like we're not human. It's like, no, I'm definitely all the way human.
Yes.
And so I understood the risk. I understood, okay, this is me, just like, I could stay behind this veil of, I don't dabble in that stuff, or that's what happens behind closed doors. Right. I could stay behind that veil, or I could just come out the gate with it and be like, yeah, this is what we're here to do. Right. And I started off, even prior to jumping into the 3 sections, my first piece is here. Yeah. And in that piece, and that's on the very, that's before we even jump into sectioning off and talk about love, sex, and romance. I basically asked the audience, I asked the readers to just be here with me. So I'm already asking for some grace. I'm asking for them to validate that I'm just a human doing human stuff. That's good. And so that's why I wanted to start. It was kind of like a moment where I'm like, yo, we finna go on a bit of a journey, and it feels risky for me. And I say in here, so as you continue to read or listen, be patient, be human, just be here. Yeah. And so that's prior to me jumping in, because I knew where I was finna go. I knew what I was finna do, and I was scared. And so here is me saying, I'm scared. I just want y'all to be with me. Just be here. Don't even judge me, Yeah. And then I said that it's twofold, because honestly, I know that that's what people want to hear. people want to, like, they kind of want to get that. They want to get some of that, like, you know, and I mean, you got to look at I think the cover kind of speaks to an element of sensuality. It's red in color. I just think it's kind of like, we finna go here. So when you saw the cover and you thought, oh, I wonder if yes, it is. We're already there. You know?
Because it's the cover in itself, this woman's silhouette, like I said, that's why I say it's a work of art, because it really is. And I definitely need to talk to Sarah, but it's just like her idea, her thought process, and her just looking at your pieces and being like, boom, this is what I see. And it all kind of just worked well together. And I remember when you sent it over, I was like, yo, this is it. I have never in my life seen something so beautiful, so amazing. And it was like it after I had, and I think you sent the cover after I had already read everything in the book and all of that stuff. And then when I saw the cover, I was like, this is perfect. And it's almost like we, at the very beginning, all three of us together had already decided this. And that what's crazy is like, no, no. It just came together. These three women, these three BIPOC women coming together to create something that literally is going to be long lasting, that's literally going to live beyond us. You never know. Your book might show up in a women's studies class at some point in time. And it's just like beautiful to see, because this is something that when you walk into a traditional bookstore, if you see this, you're like, oh, this doesn't look like it's something that's been self-published. This doesn't look like something that somebody did on their own, but you did. And I remember even going through that process with you, proving to you, like, you can do this, like, you can do this on your own. And so then we move right along into, you have another section called Black is Enough. And you say the divine, the beauty inside, the culture, the truth, the pain. Now, there are so many poems inside this section that I love. Like, A Successful Black Woman is one of my favorites.
That's my favorite.
Living Color, one of my favorites. I think Backdated is here, one of my favorites. And then we move on. I think that next one is in Origin. Nope, that's in Black and, let me make sure I don't want to, that's in Origin. So it's so the last section is Origin, y'all. I'm talking under my breath, but the last section is Origin. But inside of Black is Enough, first off, why Black is Enough? Why that title? Why did you pick that as the heading for this part of the book? And why did you feel, was there a rhyme or a reason for why you centered it directly in the middle? Or did you it's like, oh, I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, boom, boom, boom? Or was there a specific reason why it was like, this needs to be dead center, this needs to be in the middle, this is the centerpiece, this is where I want you to sit for a while? Because I feel like this is a section that also has a significant amount of poetry that goes into it as well. Yes. So please talk to us about that.
Yes, thank you for asking that question too about the ordering, because that's another important piece that I feel like can be taken for granted, or people just see it as something that's happenstance, and it's like, no, it's very intentional. I don't know if you remember, Britt, but you helped me name Black is Enough. You helped me name that section.
Okay.
That's you. We were processing through, I knew that I wanted a Black oriented section. I knew I would be talking about the experience of being Black and being a Black woman specifically. But I don't think I was at a place where I like, how do I name this? And you helped me. So I think that it was through us sifting through all of this and processing, the struggles in our community and kind of the struggles that we come up against as Black women, where I wanted to figure out the perfect way to say it. And I think I remember you saying, Black is enough. Like, we don't really have to, like, we don't have to explain it away. And I was like, oh, I love that. Like, Black is enough. Like, and I think it has a dual meaning, where it's like Black is enough, meaning I'm worthy. I don't have to be, what's the saying that like we got to be 2 times better than the next person and got to work 2 times harder. And it's like me being able to say, no, Black, like I'm enough. The way I show up in the room is enough. I don't have to dress it up. I don't have to make it look prettier or make it look a certain way. This is what it is. Yes. But on the other hand, I liked how you worded it in that context where you was like, no, Black is enough. Like, we don't have to like make people get it. And I think that was my whole struggle with this book, where I was so worried if people would get it. I was constantly questioning, like, well, it's poetry. Not everybody's into poetry. Yeah. Do I need to be more like expansive on why I wrote this the way I wrote it, or what, do I have to make people get it? And so for me to be able to settle on it and say, no, Black is enough, and that's just kind of like where we are. It was such a relief. It was like pressure was lifted. Yeah. And it also was like, let the pieces speak for themselves. Absolutely. The pieces gonna speak for themselves. And they do. And they do. Well. These are some of the heavy, and you also asked about like, why is it in the middle? It's kind of like so in therapy, we do this thing called a bell curve. So you have sessions with people where you want to do a bit of a bell curve. So you're starting out the session and it's, how was your week? And it's very low level, and we're talking about what we ate for breakfast or what the weather is like that week, or very low level. And then eventually we reach the climax of the session where there's crying and there's trauma processing and there's grief being talked about in depth. And then my job as your therapist, as your provider, as much as I can, is to try to bring you back down and have you regulated again by the end of that session. Enough. That's so good. Where I can be like, all right, Britt's done with her session today, and I can trust that she'll be all right this week, right? So I did my bell curve thing. And that's the same thing with this book. So we start off love, sex, and romance, right? There's some heavy stuff in there, but it's kind of our creep up. Then we start talking about Blackness, and we start talking about police brutality and how I feel as a Black woman and how I don't feel understood. And there's also some themes in here around abuse, and there's some themes in here around, downright depression, or me struggling with my femininity. So like these really heavy hitting topics, and that's kind of that's that top of that bell curve. It is. These are the topics that make me the most uncomfortable and may make my audience most uncomfortable. And then we get into origin, where I'm starting to try to regulate us again.
Yeah, I agree. And that was a great explanation and a great illustration, because Kiarra, I say stuff all the time. I'm gonna be quite honest. I say stuff all the time, and it's up for people and up for even myself to catch it. And I don't realize that I've said something maybe that's impactful or brilliant. As my grandmother said, I'm not that smart. It takes Holy Spirit to kind of help me to get things done. And that's not to, diminish my own intelligence or anything. That's just to be quite honest. Like, the Spirit speaks through me, and then things just come up. Or in that moment when you were talking, I probably I got a little frustrated, or maybe I was trying to motivate you to be like, you don't have to explain away your existence. You don't have to explain every little intricate piece of you. Mm-hmm. You can just be you. You can just do you, like, and be okay with that. And I think I explored that theme a lot in my own book, where I say in the interlude, I go as deep or as shallow as I choose to. Mm-hmm. And it's either up for you to take what it is that I'm laying before you for interpretation, or leave it. And one of my favorite sayings that I've grown up hearing is, take what you can from the table and leave the rest. And so I feel like when you say Black is enough, we are. And like you said, we are. Like, we don't have to try to compete or compare. Mm-hmm. We're here it's evident that we're here. We're fully aware of our greatness. We're fully aware of the part that we play in this history. No matter how you try to explain it away, you can't explain it away, because there is no America without Black people.
Period.
I repeat it, there is no America without Black people.
No.
It was built on the backs of Black people. Now, whether we want to acknowledge that or not, that's your problem to deal with. But the fact of the matter is, the reality, the history of that thing is that this country was built on the back of slaves, period. And so, yes, your Black is enough. And so, yes, it's important that we put that out in the forefront, especially now during the times where book banning is happening and where we're trying to to navigate through hardships, where we have a Black woman trying to become the Supreme Court justice, and she's being asked asinine questions, and they're literally trying to get her to explain her Blackness. Exactly. And so your book of poetry specifically, like I said, there are so many pieces in this specific section. We can actually go to Successful Black Woman, since we brung up Miss Kantaji. We can go to Successful Black Woman. And I love the fact that you say so many things in here. You says it starts off and says, trials and tribulations add to the many head cases I plead to be dismissed. And so let's talk about that. Let's talk about even the artwork on the other side, to be fearful less. Like, what does that mean for you, to be fearful less? And then what did this specific piece mean to have it in this work of art, in this section? What did that mean? What was your process going through that? Why did you think it was necessary to understand that as a Black woman, I can be successful, and we are out here and we have things that we deal with, that we struggle with? Please tell us.
Yes. Brie, this is actually one of my favorite pieces in the book. So I'm so happy that you're like honing in on this one. And I think even more now. So I turned 30 January 25th. I turned 30, and you know how it is.
Welcome to your 30s, baby.
30, for some reason, it's like the like the bar raises. And I'm the same, I'm the same girl I was on. It's like, wait a minute. And so this idea of being a successful Black woman is something that I feel like is always like put in my face, and I'm always having to like gauge whether or not like, am I measuring up to that? Mm-hmm. And this idea of being fearful less, I really have been growing more comfortable with the soft parts of me. So that has been tough.
Ooh, that's good. Ooh.
It's like,
I don't want to have that conversation, Kiarra. Yeah.
Because I really was, and I have poems in here about my mother and my father and the dynamic there. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, for a while, like I was raised especially during my teen years, by my father.
Yeah.
And a lot of the very good advice that he gave me had to do, of course, it's coming from a masculine perspective. And it has to do with like, hey, like you got to take care of yourself out here. Like, it's those very strong qualities that I have and that I show up with and I benefit from. And I'll never take those away.
Yeah.
But I didn't get the other side. I didn't hear it's okay for you to think that you love that little boy that you think that you love, but you're not going to love him in a few years. But you think you love him now, and that's okay. Yeah. Like, I was never told that was okay, or, to like be down in the dumps and, just really be grappling with my emotions as a young woman trying to figure everything out. It was just like automatically, whether this was due to my father's ignorance or whatever, it was like, hey, we ain't got time for that. Like, you got a good life. You're safe, you're protected. You got a lot more than these other girls out here in the hood got. So you good. What you got your head down for? Like, it was just instantly like snap out of it.
Yes.
And so it's taken me much later in life to really start appreciating the feminine qualities, those soft parts, the vulnerability, the fear, right? So I'm talking about be fearful less, because it's like we don't got to extinguish fear. We don't have to completely extinguish these, feelings that are very real and true to where we are.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have to completely get rid of it, but there are times where I've just got to be a little less fearful, and I got to step into the light and whatever is calling on me. And so that was the significance around fearful less. It was like, instead of me saying fearless, which means you got no fear, I'm like, nah, like, I can keep some fear in there. I can keep some of that in there. That's okay. As long as I can like titrate it, and like mess with it a little bit when I need to. So that's the fearful less. And then, I love this line. Honestly, I think it's a bar if I was a rapper. But it's like, when I say trials and tribulations add to the many head cases, I plead to be dismissed, right? So I'm talking about it like in terms of like this court setting. And it's funny because I work in the court system now as a therapist. But I'm talking about it in terms of like this court setting, trials and tribulations. So I'm encountering these challenges across life that are really contributing to my head cases, cases as in, court cases. But cases like me, like really having some mental struggles, some mental issues, and I'm pleading for them to be dismissed. I just want them to be gone, right? And it's like, for me, that's what a successful Black woman does. Like, she kind of feels those strong emotions bubble up, and then she gets rid of them instantly. And it was through me writing this, that I was like, I said in here, I said, today I will say on my own that I'm terrified of being alone. So it's like, it's me confessing. I'm confessing it. I'm like, all of this hard exterior that I put up for as long as you've known me, no, today I'm gonna just say it. Like, I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be lonely. This stuff hurts, and it's like, so successful Black woman is me, like, really calling out society and saying, like, y'all have put this measuring stick on us that ain't even realistic.
Hello.
And I'm saying goodbye with it. I can be a successful Black woman once I'm whole.
Yes.
And it's like, that's what that's about.
Yeah, it's getting rid of that strong Black woman trope. It's really get rid of that. And for the last 4 years, and actively in being accessible to therapy and being in therapy, immersed in therapy, I actually need to make a appointment to see my therapist now. So I have to, I have to make one because I'm a little bit overdue, and we have some things to talk about. But to have that conversation in the last year, year and a half, what you just said, acknowledging the softer sides of my emotions, or the softer sides of me and my femininity. Because although my parents, like, I have a kind of strained relationship, not anymore, because I choose to have a better relationship with my parents now as an adult. But when I had a strained relationship with them, and when my dad was coming in and was doing parenting, same thing. He was teaching me from the masculine male perspective: be a go-getter, be aggressive, do what you have to do. These men, these boys, whatever, could wait. If they ain't trying to get on your page, say goodbye. Stay focused, all of these different things. And that has benefited me for a very long time, until it doesn't.
Right.
And so then
exactly.
And so you get to this point in your life, and you're super successful professionally, but personally and emotionally, you're depleting, you're falling apart. And you have to try to figure out, and you have to have these conversations with yourself, like, where did I drop the ball? Where did I go wrong? And I'm in the process of having some of those conversations again with myself now as I prepare to write this second book, which is going to be,
I cannot.
as I prepare to write this second book, and having conversations with myself about mistakes that I have made and romantic relationships. Yeah. And where I dropped the ball and where I wasn't emotionally available, where I thought that I was ready. But then when I got out there and I started kind of like dipping my toe in, I started tapping around the area with my foot, and it was like, oh, this is not sturdy. and I don't feel safe or secure here. And like you, but then I still have this, I'm a little fearful less because I'm okay with being alone because I've been alone by myself and I've kind of still learning myself. But then it's kind of like I don't want to be. I don't want to be by myself. I actually desire to have companionship, but I don't desire to have emotional manipulation. I don't desire to have to necessarily work hard to get the results, to yield the results. I don't feel like at this point in my life now at 31, be 32 this year, where I should have to overexert myself and work hard for you to love me. I feel like your love should come easy. It should come free flowing because that's how mine is coming. Because I've reached a point of wholeness. I've reached a point of health in my life where I shouldn't have to literally cry myself to sleep. I shouldn't have to have these tears. I shouldn't have to be picking myself up off the shower floor or out of a heap just to say that I'm connected and I have someone. And so it goes into that conversation of learning how to be emotionally mature enough to set more boundaries with myself and also recognize where I might need to do extra healing. And so that is one of my favorite poems as well. And this just turned into a whole therapy session. but
it's real, man. I'm right where you are. And something about what you just said, I really do love, Britt, because when my dad was telling me some legitimate stuff and he was speaking from what he knows about me and as a man, it was this either or. It was like, if you be in love, you're gonna be hurt. It was like there was no like gray area. There was like, there's no good men. You know, I was like, I never got that. So I'm just like, I'm thinking, oh well, love, like I can't accept love and I can't give it. Right. And it's like that brought me so many challenges in so many different ways. Because honestly, I was going against my nature.
Yes.
My nature is not to not give love and not to receive it. That's not what.
That's not in our nature. Our nature is, as we've been created beings, we've been created to be in community. We've been created to love. We've been created to pour out. We've been created to be in relationship. And so when we are in these long periods of isolation and loneliness, we're actually going against our nature. And then life's situations happen too. And that causes us to be closed off. And I love what my pastor says. He says that we should have up gates and not walls, because a wall means that you can't get anything in, you can't get anything out. But when you build a fence that has a gate attached to it, that means that you can see and you can let things go in, you can let things come out.
I love that.
Free flowing. I love it too. It's like it's free flowing. And then as I continue to grow up, as I continue to acknowledge the fact that, oh, I was never really properly trained on how to be in relationships in general. Because when you think about it, friendships are relationships too. And so learning how to be a good friend and then having to evaluate myself to be like, okay, if I was on the other side, if I was me, would I date me? Would I want to be in a relationship with me? And then having to acknowledge those real feelings and be like, there are some things about myself that I don't really necessarily like that could be adjusted. And then understanding that there will never be a perfect person.
That's it.
I have this list. You have these lists. You have these things that you write down. And there are some non-negotiables. I do believe that there are. But then there are some things that are some gray areas, because it's like, You ain't perfect.
Exactly.
So why are you expecting this person to show up and to be everything that you desire to be? And that's not coming from a healed place. That's still coming from an emotionally damaged
Right.
or hurt place, and having to understand that. And as I continue to navigate through my 30s, navigating through my 30s is also helping me to forgive my parents and forgive the people that I love, because it's like, is this what y'all was dealing with at this
Mm.
age? That y'all was hiding from us? That you weren't being emotionally available talking about? Oh, these are the experiences that you were having. Oh, this is why you have substance abuse
Yeah.
issues, and this is why you suppress those emotions. This is how you start to see patterns. And then when those things start to show up in your own life, and
Yeah.
it's transitioning us into origin. So when those things start to transition and come
You
up
are
in your
such a
own
good
life.
interviewer, Britt.
Thank you.
The way you just did that, I was like, wait.
Listen, and like when those things come up though, and it flowed. It just flowed. It's like those things
That was dope.
it shows up in your life, and you be like, oh, that's the root of that. And so it's funny that I just thought about it. It's like origin, the roots of which I grew. There will be no me without you. I am your fruit. Woo! First off, before we even get into the poems for real, like Kiki, come on now. For real, I was like, I think where I first read that, and now reading it over again, I'm like, wait, that just cut deep for this time. And I was like, this girl, what? Yes. And so there are two poems in here in this origin section that I hold dear. And I think I hold them so dear because they are very close. There are a couple things in here that I love, but I think I hold these two dear particularly because they're very close to my similar situation. And that's the one about, I love the one you talk about your dad. And you say, people say, yeah, that's the one about your father. But then you have the one about your mom as well. And I think that one is Realize.
Yeah.
Realize was so emotionally taxing for me. I know it was for you because you wrote it, but Realize was so emotionally taxing for me. And I was like, I'm gonna need all these women around me to get away from me, because I'm gonna need y'all all not to have these same issues with y'all mama. I need y'all not. And
Right?
you were so raw, honest, and like emotionally present in this poem. And I was like, just go away from me, Kiarra. Go away from me. And I think we talked about this poem before, but really talk about how you felt when you had to write these two poems about your parents, because they're distinctively different, but they're still very beautiful in the sense, because Realize is almost like, I don't want to give it away. You tell them. Tell the people what I don't want to put my interpretation on it. Tell the people what Realize is about for you.
This is the one, this poem makes me cry. And talking about the process of this poem. So because you my girl, I'm finna give you like an exclusive backdrop. So for those, so poems in this book are, and I said, me and Britt made sure to make it clear that this is a compilation of poems that I've written across my years. So the poems in here are not exactly new. Some of them are. Mr. Cognac is a newer one. That's a newer part of my life.
I'm gonna have to purchase the book to read Mr.
but a lot of them aren't. A lot of them are poems that I wrote when I was in the thick of these different parts of my life. And so Realize is actually kind of it was a diss poem to a guy that my mom was dating at the time. And he wasn't a good guy. My mom doesn't typically, her choices in men, is something that her and I always tend to, I always turn my head like this and be like, mama, and so it was her birthday, I think. I'm pretty sure it was her birthday, or Mother's Day. It was Mother's Day. And I wrote her this poem, Realize, and I typed it up. I put it in a frame for her, and she still has it. She has it hanging up on her wall in her house. And it was a diss poem to him. So he was there at the time, and I read it out loud, and it was to him. It was about him. So, but you're right. Like the hard part about writing this poem, even at that time and even reading it back, and I promise you, I was reflecting on my book earlier this week. I knew we would be doing this. And I was like, if I could go back, I don't know if I would put Realize in the book.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And it's not that I regret it, but I wonder if I would do it again. It's not. I don't know. It's such a heavy one. And so in this poem, I'm really speaking to my mom, being her cheerleader and letting her know that she's great, she's wonderful. I'm trying to remind her that I want her to realize that. And so that's why I keep on saying it. And I say, Mama, you have so much beauty inside of you. The world sees it. Why can't you? Only give your time to who deserves it. Only give affection to who has earned it. This is woman to woman in the midst of daughter to mother. So I had reached a point where I had to remind her now, just what you were just talking about, Britt, where it's like, I'm grown now and I get it in a way that I didn't get it before. I didn't get it when I was younger and looking at, wondering why my mom is making decisions that not only hurt her, but because I'm her child, it hurts me too. I'm kind of caught up in the cycle of it all as well. Yeah. And so when I put that in there, this is woman to woman in the midst of daughter to mother. So I am your child, but I'm also a woman who now has had a lot of experiences. So the level of which I'm able to speak to her now is from a place of compassion and understanding, rather than me feeling slighted, me feeling like me being judgmental, or all of those really heavy feelings I held on to as a young girl who didn't quite get it. Then I was able to tell her, like, no, I get it now. I see it now, Mama. And I've done a lot of the same stuff, right? So now Realize is me saying, and really through talking to her, I'm talking to myself. I'm telling myself, Kiarra, you need to realize that, like, you the bomb, and you don't have to downplay yourself or minimize yourself for no man. So this book this poem took on a whole new meaning, and I think it will continue to take on a new meaning
as you develop. Yeah,
as I develop, the more I go back and read it, I'm like, oh, this is about me. And then at the end, I signed it with my nickname, the nickname that she gave me, which is Brad. So that's another thing about this book, where it's like, that's the whispers part. It's like, that's me giving even more insight into, like, the personal and vulnerable parts, because people don't call me Brat, but that's the name she gave me and still calls me to this day. And so for me to put that in there was a big deal for me, because I knew she would read that and know that I wouldn't be talking to nobody else but her, so it's a deep one. That's a deep one for me, for sure. And then when you mix in our dynamic of having some points of separation in our lives and kind of estrangement, to be honest, where a lot of time went by that I didn't talk to her, I just think it adds to the level of intensity of, like, whoo, like, and I was like, when I think about my decision around putting this in here, I couldn't not be honest about the complicated nature of her and I's relationship, but I wanted to make sure that I was communicating that I love my mother regardless, and that nobody walked away from this poem like, ooh, her and her mama is not, good. Like, I wanted them to know, like, sounds like they got some rocky moments, but overall, she loved her mama,
And I love that about, and I think that's why it cuts so deep for me, because that, yeah, I relate, and I relate in a way that's very similar to what, what you're saying, because of course, go pick up my book too, Confessions of a Young Adult's Wife.
Confessions of a Young, yes.
You'll find out about that, about some of those dynamics, and I'm actually planning to deep dive more into that conversation as I start writing. And
that's so courageous.
It listen, I gotta find it. I gotta find the courage. I gotta find the strength. I actually started writing another exclusive in this episode. I actually started writing an open letter to my mom that I plan to include. And I know that it's gonna be like, people gonna be like, like, and it's actually gonna be called Dear Mama. And it's gonna be based off of course, the song by Tupac, which is Dear Mama. And it's an essay. And so that's what the name of the essay is gonna be. It's gonna be Dear Mama.
Wow.
Very interesting, because for the first time in my life ever, since I've lived here, and in general, not even just since I've lived here, since ever in my life, and it happened while being separated and living here. I think it was in either 2019 or 2020. It might have been 2020 during the close to the beginning of the pandemic. I had a 3-hour, 4-hour conversation with my mom. I have never in my life talked to my mother in any capacity for that long.
Wow.
Ever. I have never. And we have not had a long conversation like that since, but never in my life. And that was something for me. And I think it was something for her too. But it, like you said earlier, we reached a point where we were literally just like, we were having a moment, and it was just like, I have a deeper respect, understanding, and fondness for you now. Yes. As a 30-some, 28-something, whatever age I was at the time, year old woman, than I've ever, because now I get it. Now I realize. Now I understand.
Realize.
Yes.
You know what, Britt? I want to add something else, and this is going back to us talking about the successful Black woman and and our fathers kind of telling us to stay away from those soft parts of ourselves. I also realized that femininity was a trigger for me because of my relationship with my mom.
You in my business. You in my business. You in my house. I'm gonna need you to come from out. Get out.
When I tell you, when that fell on me, because we say things like, "Oh, I don't need no female friends," or I get along with guys better, or whatever, right? And we still hear that type of language to this day. And I used to say stuff like that, like, for some reason, me and guys just click, but me and girls,
always.
And it's like, So it hit me. It fell on me. I said, "Oh no, Mommy, I'm avoiding that." Yeah. That energy scares me. It doesn't feel safe. It feels weak. It feels fragile. It feels unstable. It feels like it will abandon me. Yes. It feels, it's just all of those parts of having that motherly attachment and what that's supposed to mean and what it's actually looked like for me. I just kind of built my whole life and my whole existence around shunning those parts of myself.
Yeah. And I think in part of the line, and I don't know if it's not something that I wrote down, I'm going to write it down. One of the things I said, I believe, as I prepared to write this letter, I believe that I said that you're one of the only people and the only things I refuse to talk about in therapy.
Ooh. Me too.
Because it brings me to tears. Instantly.
And crazy.
And it's like, I know I have to talk about this at some point because I have to give myself this release. But to even acknowledge that, like, it goes back into that avoidance, because you don't know what you might uncover when you start trying to deep dive into those areas. But then also recognizing that there is a piece, a point of healing that has to go into that needs to happen in order for you to move forward in other spaces, and in order for you to break free and give yourself the grace that you need for one day when you may have children or whatever.
That's what I was
you may
gonna
have
say.
a daughter, and you want to be able to give your daughter an extension of a grace that you found that you give into your mother, because the things that we don't uncover, the things that we don't talk about, the things that we don't heal from are the things that we're bound to repeat. And so recognizing and understanding that is just like, okay, yeah, we're gonna deal with that. And it's not something that stops. It's something that's I know we're well past our hour, but that's okay.
That's what we do. That's what we do.
What we do. And it's just something that's forgiveness for your parents and hurt like that. That's a recurring cycle. It's not something, it's a recurring cycle of grief for me that I constantly find myself every day, every time something might come up that's an insecurity, or every time something might come up that I'm unaware, that I didn't get taught, that I didn't know. It's a constant cycle for me of constantly forgiving. And it brings me back to that scripture where now I understand what that scripture meant, that says when the disciples asked Jesus, how many times shall we forgive people? 3 times or 7 times, because he thought he was being generous. And then Jesus said 70 times 7. And that 70 times 7 doesn't mean that you should be counting up to that number. But what it literally means is that there should be a constant flow where you're constantly forgiving someone. You're constantly giving people grace, because the same way you give those people grace is what you also need.
Yes.
And within the last 2.5 years, especially going through a whole pandemic, I have realized just how much grace I've needed and how much grace I have to give to other people, and then how much grace I have to give to myself. Because this period of time really forced us to look at ourselves and look at our lives in a way that I was already doing this examination, but there was a deeper examination that had to happen when I was forced into an even more isolated period.
Yes.
Because I was already isolated. But then when we were forced to stay home and I could not leave, there was a deeper period of isolation that I was forced into. It was almost like a hibernation that I was forced into, that I really had to start examining and dealing with myself about why I do the things that I do. And last year for sure was when it came to romantic relationships, it really was why am I doing this? Why am I not allowing myself this? And even when it was to the point where I was in a therapy session where my therapist said, I can see you. I'm seeing you right now. And you are literally not allowing yourself an emotional response. You are literally not allowing yourself a release. She's like, I'm watching you. You are literally preventing yourself from releasing your emotions. And I was like, because, and she's like, this is a safe space for you. Why are you stopping yourself in this space? She had to give me permission.
Yes.
And I never knew that I needed someone else to do that, but she had to give me permission to cry. She's like, this is a safe space. This is a place where you can release. And she's like, you've been doing that for a very long time, because it looks natural.
Very skilled.
And I was like, yes, I don't give myself that. For the first time in my life, that I think last year was the first time I've ever really, truly, deeply, like gut-wrenchingly cried in front of a friend. Never. And to have that vulnerable moment like that made me angry, because I couldn't control it. So it's just, and that goes into these origins, because friends become family.
Yeah,
they are family.
And I got village in here.
Yes, that's
and it's like when I think of village and I open with village, I think village is my first one. And it's like with village, that's exactly what I wanted to touch on. I wanted to touch on as far as origin goes. I talk about ancestors in here. I talk about, where, history. I say my bloodline is rich and thick. And so it's like, this is not just what we see in the physical form. This is not just the family that is related by blood. This is like the village that literally like keeps me going, right? And it's like the village that's like, and we've been talking about communication and reaching out to people, and it's like, you are a part of my village, Britt. Like, that's the reason why we can get together and we can go over an hour long in conversation, or we can just vibe like this. And it's like, that's the connections that we have. Like, and when I think of us walking through this world, I think of us with like all of these arms, all of these like connections and yarn or whatever it is that's like just tying us together all the time. We're with each other. Yes. I can reach out to you at any point, and I know that for a fact. And it's like, that's my village. Mm-hmm. And as much as I can remind myself of that, because I always feel alone, I always feel like nobody would understand, or I'm bothering people. As much as I can remember that my village is, they out here, and they're in all different parts of the world, and I can talk to them whether I'm talking to them in a physical form or in the spirit. I can tap into my village and my source when I need to. And so it's like, that's something that I'm constantly working on, constantly having to remind myself that, Kiarra, you're not alone out here, and it's like, man, I'm so grateful for y'all. I really am.
I'm grateful for you too. And that's another thing I'm actually going to deep dive into, because I feel like I didn't deep dive into any of my collegiate years or any of that in my first book. And that's something else that I'm going to talk about. Actually, it's going to be called What About Your Friends, I believe. That's a loosely based title. Don't quote me on that. Don't hold me to it. But it's going to be an essay specifically talking about friendships, because I feel like because although I love my friends and stuff like that, there is also pain that comes with that as well. And acknowledging that pain, and acknowledging also the goodness that comes out of, creating lifelong friendships and relationships. And then also acknowledging my parts in the points where friendships may have fell apart. And It was probably my fault. And more than likely, there have been moments where it has been my fault, and acknowledging how I have played a part in those demise, and acknowledging how my reservations and reserve and my need to preserve and to secure myself, how I've pushed people away instead of drawing them closer. And so having those conversations, and village is also one of my favorites. But we are coming to, I feel like, a really natural, because we'll be here all night messing with this. Right. So we're coming to a natural close. But before we leave, I believe this is one that is exclusive to the paperback, Eulogy. I want to read that, because that's one of my favorites as well. And it kind of ends off. I believe this one is exclusive to the book. This may not be this one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, Eulogy is the one that's exclusive to the paperback.
Please read Eulogy. Let's end off with this, because this is a very powerful poem. And briefly explain why you wrote is basically like a living will inside your own book. And then I just want to say to everyone, thank you. First off, thank you, Kiarra, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for watching. This has been an amazing episode. I'm sure we're going to get lots of love, because you have a whole village, literally. You got an army behind you of support. But please, yes, read Eulogy and then explain to me why this was important too. And then we'll close it out.
Yeah. Eulogy is actually, it's one of my darker poems, right? Like I've had moments in my life, as I think a lot of us do, where I have fantasized about not existing, not necessarily dying or ending my life, but just not existing, just not having to be. And I wondered about that a lot. So I wanted to make sure that I was honest about, even as a therapist, even as somebody who tries to put my best face on.
Right.
I've absolutely had moments where I was just like, oh, I just kind of hope tomorrow doesn't come, you know, and just have thought about death and what that would be like. And so that was that vulnerable moment again, where I was just like, okay, just kind of put it out there, Kiarra. But then also I wanted to really dive into kind of like from an aerial view, like of like, okay, when you think about passing or just like not existing in like a present form, or like not being actually present, like what do you see, what do you observe? So I talk about my community, I talk about like how I see us out here just trying to make it through the next day. And it's kind of like, although I'm like not wanting to exist, I'm also watching the people around me, even in their existence, just not be alive, like not be fully alive either. So it's just kind of those moments where you feel a connection, where you're kind of like everybody's kind of on this same page.
Yeah.
Where we're not exactly happy, but we're pushing through.
Yeah.
And so I am gonna read it, and then I got a part in here that I want to like just kind of break down what I meant by it, and then we'll wrap up. All right, so eulogy. And when I pass, I hope to leave behind an energy in this world that one cannot miss. I hope to have displayed strength. Strength to the point where you feel empowered by walking into where I once laid my head when I'm dead. I don't want speakers at my funeral talking about all the fictitious shit that I used to do. I want them to remember me in my usual, drowned from head to toe in my own mess, taking my struggle in stride day by day, faults and all, but still going strong, guilt and all, but still going strong, regret and all, but still going strong. I want them to speak of my home, a city of beautiful ruins, East St. Louis, where murders are as common as conversations, where criminal activities are used as blankets that warm the cold soul of a boy in the city of Lone. I want them to speak of disappointment. I want them to speak of painful parades, band members dressed in black from head to toe, and drill sergeants struggling to let go. Speak of sympathy when you remember me. Tell people how selfish I could be, and how at times I thought of forgetting each and every one of you.
Ooh, yeah.
Yes.
Eulogy is powerful.
Eulogy is powerful.
And it's definitely raw emotion, like super raw emotion. But please explain the part that you want to explain and why you wrote it the way you did.
So in general, eulogy is really me. I battled this desire to want to appear to be perfect and to want to have control over my image and to control the way that people perceive me. So in here, you know how when you go to funerals and people are like, oh, she would give her last to somebody, and she never frowned, and Kiarra never talked about nobody bad, or, you know, it's like I say in here, please don't talk about all of the fictitious shit that I used to do. Tell them about me and my usual. Like, just be real. Like, Kiarra was something else, y'all. You know, like, do that. So that's what that's about, is me really, really trying to shed from the inside out, trying to shed. And you was talking about journaling earlier and how writing it down actually helps you make it real, like it's there now. And that's what this is me saying, Kiarra, you got to stop trying to show up as if this girl, like you this girl that got it all together. Like, throw that away, because it's killing you. Like, it's really making me sad. you need to do away with that. But there's a part in here where I say, I want them to speak of painful parades, band members dressed in black from head to toe, and drill sergeants struggling to let go. So the painful parades, right? I was thinking about the marches. I was thinking about Black Lives Matter protests. I was thinking about seas of people that's like leading this charge. That's the painful parade, right? Mm-hmm. But also I talked about band members dressed in black from head to toe. So these are our foot soldiers. These are our folks out here that we label as thugs. These are the ones that we want to throw away. But these are our foot soldiers. They're like our band members that's keeping the community thriving. They're out here. They're the ones that when you drive into work, you see them out there chopping it up in the morning, right? They on the corner. They, it's early in the morning. What are y'all doing out here? Who knows? But they're out there. They're talking. They're the life in the community that we see. So these are our band members dressed in black from head to toe. And our drill sergeants who are struggling to let go are our elders. These are our elders. These are our folks who, they're that generation that's like not trusting us. So they're struggling to let go. They don't trust us to carry forth the traditions or to do right, or, so they're struggling to let go. They on their last. And it's like they haven't passed that baton. Yeah. So this is what I'm seeing, right? This is like, the dynamic that's happening in my community and around me. And so I just feel like I wrote that in such a poetic way that I wanted to be just more clear about who I was talking about. Because I talk about East St. Louis specifically. And so those are the folks within our community that I'm referencing in eulogy.
That's so good. That was so good. So good. Thank you all for sticking in with us. This has been a lovely, lovely conversation. Many more to come, I'm sure. A little birdie told me that you might have a joint project coming out with someone else that we had on here. Nikki Got a Gun.
Yeah, me and Nikki got a gun. We're going to collaborate. We're going to do something really soon. I'm super excited about that.
And I'm super excited to read it and to see it. So, yes, I will be on the lookout, you all, for that collaboration. Two dynamic Black women coming together with very powerful words to say, oh, this is going to be lovely. I can't wait to see it. But thank you all for watching. As always, it has been wonderful. It has been beautiful. Thank you, Kiarra, for being here.
Thank you.
And we'll see you all back here next week.
Bye, y'all.